So this comes from BBC News, World News. Trump and Democrats end a meeting without a deal as U.S. shutdown looms. So it sounds like Trump and the Democrats did have a meeting after all, because Trump, he said no. They had a meeting scheduled, I think it was last Friday, and he ended up canceling the meeting because it wasn't going to go anywhere. And he's absolutely right. It wasn't going to go anywhere. So I guess he gave them an audience, it appears today. And let me just play this first, see what Chuck Schumer has to say.
We have
Who is
very
that?
large
Hakeem Jeffries, I think.
on health care and on their ability to undo whatever budget we agree to through rescissions and through impoundment, as well as pocket rescissions. And I think for the first time, the president heard our objections and heard why we needed a bipartisan bill. Their bill has not one iota of Democratic input. That is never how we've done this before.
We have disagreements.
By the way, this is just a temporary funding bill that they're fighting over. This is a 6-week funding bill. This bill that they're holding up, this is not the fiscal year bill for next year. This isn't the financial bill that they're passing for next year. That comes up in about 6 weeks. This is just some temporary, just to get the government over the finish line to the next fiscal year spending bill. That's all this thing is. It's absolutely ridiculous what they're doing. And notice how they don't tell you exactly what they want this $1.5 trillion for. The Democrats have been kind of quiet about that, except for them screaming about 15 million Americans are going to lose health care. Their health care is going to skyrocket and get so expensive. Yeah, because they're getting rid of tax provisions or tax credits in the One Big Beautiful Bill. They slashed a bunch of tax credits from Obamacare. And I think they should. If you're receiving Obamacare, look, these tax credits are temporary. They were never meant to be forever. That was never the intention. But of course, the Democrats want to hang on to it because it's a power move. It just allows them to stand up on a fucking soapbox and preach to their voters, look, the big bad Republicans, they're going to make your health care go up. No, actually, Obamacare took care of that 12, 13 years ago. It made all of our health care extremely expensive, actually. It made it much, much, much worse. Anyway, the U.S. is hurtling toward a government shutdown on Tuesday night, and there appears to be little appetite on either side of the partisan divide to avoid it. A last-ditch meeting between President Trump and Democrat leaders in Congress made little progress. If anything, both sides have been digging deeper into their positions. After the meeting, John Thune, a Republican Senate Majority Leader, accused the Democrats of hostage-taking. Democratic Senator Leader Chuck Schumer said there were very large differences between his party and the White House. Well, duh. Yeah, of course. It's because y'all have turned into fucking psychopaths. No one sounded optimistic. Republicans want a short-term extension of current spending levels, essentially kicking the legislative can a bit further down the road. They're happy with the way things are going, particularly since the Trump administration has been implementing spending cuts on its own without the help of congressional budget setters. And let's see, Democrats want that practice to end. What's the point, they wonder, with negotiating spending level agreements if Trump will just ignore them? They also want a firm agreement to renew the government health insurance subsidies for low-income individuals that expire at the end of the year, something Republicans have been reluctant to do so far. Yeah, I mean, they should be allowed to expire. Look, most of these people, either they're on welfare or they're not working, or, there's a whole bunch of different variables. I guess it's kind of convoluted if you dig further into it. However, a lot of this that the Democrats want to include pertains to illegal immigrants. Anyway, those are the negotiating positions of both sides, but the government shutdown fights are about more than policy. They're about politics. Republicans think they have the political high ground. The party that makes demands in exchange for keeping the government open, in this case, the Democrats, typically gets the lion's share of the blame when a shutdown happens. Well, yeah, dude, the Republicans have already agreed to everything. It's the Democrats that at the quote-unquote last minute, now all of a sudden they want $1.5 trillion for a bunch of just Democratic nonsense. Anyway, Trump and the Republican congressional leaders are already claiming that they are the reasonable ones. Yeah, they are. They're the ones, they say, who simply want to buy more time to negotiate without the adverse consequences of a shutdown. Quote, you don't put a gun to the American people's head and say, unless you do exactly what Senate and House Democrats want you to do, we're going to shut down your government, Vice President J.D. Vance told reporters outside the White House. I think I've got that clip, actually. Of course, Democrats don't see it that way. So anyway, it continues. It's a long article. I can't read through the whole thing, of course, but it's a link down below if you want to check it out. It starts with bbc.com, and you can have a look at it if you like. And this comes from the Daily Caller. Rep. Rosa DeLorio, she's quite a character, has a meltdown when asked if the public will blame Democrats for the possible government shutdown. This ought to be fun.
But
it's 3 minutes. She must go on one hell of an unhinged rant.
Very strong about where we are and that there needs to be.
Yeah, she totally looks reasonable,
Are
right?
you worried that people would blame the Democrats if there's a shutdown?
She doesn't look like a raving lunatic.
Get over it.
Yeah.
Get over it. We have been trying to sit down, and I sat in a meeting with my 3 counterparts where we said very clearly the consensus was bipartisan continuing resolution, which took into consideration Democratic priorities and also dealt with the issue of not being able to steal funds that had already been appropriated. Consensus. Okay, what happened to that consensus? It went to Thune, it went to Johnson, they said no. President sets up a meeting, cancels it. Meets today, and apparently, and as I say, I haven't talked to...
Was she pissed that she wasn't invited?
My leadership yet, but we'll be doing that shortly. That in fact, there needs to be a bipartisan negotiation, and the differences are clear.
This is exactly what they want. They want exactly what I was worried about. They know they're not going to get 1.5 trillion. It's the whole art of the deal. They expect the Republicans to come back and say, look, 1.5 trillion is insane. We'll do 200 billion or some bullshit like that. That's what they're pissed off. That's what she's pissed off about, because they fully expect Republicans to cave, as they always do.
And those are the differences. And above all, it is a question of the health care costs and affordability for the American people. That is what is at stake in this delineation. That is what it's about. And they can move to come to bipartisan negotiations. I've dealt in the House with nothing but unilateral partisan bills, 12 of them. 12.
Yeah, they just want to keep writing blank checks to all the health insurance companies so they could just charge anything they damn well please. Yeah, let's just keep paying $8,000 for a CT scan, even though it doesn't cost more than $100 to actually conduct a CT scan. For instance, there's all kinds of goods and services provided by the healthcare industry that has been hyperinflated over the last 12, 15 years. And the Democrats' answer is, well, just throw more money at them. Just give them more money. It's all about the money. Money. No, why don't you go after the root of the problem? I don't know if you should regulate the cost of healthcare goods and services. I don't know if that's really the right answer. I don't know. I'm no expert. I'm just saying that shit costs way more than it used to, and a lot of it is because of Obamacare and the federal government writing these virtual blank checks. Whatever it is that they're charging, I guess we'll pay for it, because as long as it's approved by whoever, we'll pay whatever it is.
You want to have a good faith effort?
This is not the way to fix it. Throw more money at it. It's only going to make it worse.
Okay.
Your leadership coming out of this meeting mentioned some options, but before President Trump, do you have a sense?
I don't know what the options were. I'll be very honest with you as I say so. But they're dealing in good faith, strong as hell about what the situation is, and above all, that the costs of health care to the American people are unacceptable with what they want to do, and the dismantling of public health in the United States is what is at stake.
It's just kind of funny. It's kind of interesting how, this is what all the Democrats are talking about right now. They're not talking about Gaza. They're not talking about Ukraine. They're not talking about the, violence that ICE is having to deal with. They're standing up on this healthcare thing. This is all they've been talking about for about 2 weeks now. Like 95% of the stuff that I read from Democrats on a daily basis, it's all about the government. The shutdown is happening because Republicans are trying to strip healthcare away from Americans. And it's just kind of odd to me, I think, that this is the one big thing that they're going to stand on. And my main thought behind that is that because it affects relatively a few amount of Americans. I mean, the people who are going to see their healthcare costs increase, what's it going to be, like a couple million, maybe something like that? I don't think it's going to be 20, 30 million. I mean, if it is, correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I believe like a lot of this money they want going to illegal immigrants. At least so I've read. And I haven't seen any Democrats pushing back against that, saying absolutely not happening. We are not giving a single dime to any illegal immigrants with this healthcare provision that we're demanding. Not a single Democrat has said that. And trust me, I would share it. If any Democrat denied that, saying that we are not giving any of this money that we're asking for, this $1.5 trillion, none of it is going to any illegal immigrants. This is to give money toward the government-funded Obamacare, Affordable Care Act, whatever, toward Americans. But none of them have said that. Republicans have been very clear. They've been saying that over and over, and I've been shown it on this show over and over again. That's what Republicans are saying. They want this money for illegal immigrants to allow them to keep taking taxpayer-funded health care. And Democrats really haven't said anything at all in as far as pushback against that. Instead, they just keep saying that, well, Republicans control the government right now, and they're stripping health care away from all the Americans. It's very interesting. It's very bizarre to me.
Offered 1 or 2 years of the ACA tax credits. Is that something Democrats?
Let's talk about what it is. I mean, this is all in the realm of speculation. This bit here, this bit there. Sit down with us. Let's hammer it out. I spent a lot of years negotiating appropriations bills with Senator Shelby, with Kay Granger, with Susan Collins. We know how we can do this. They have refused to get to a bipartisan negotiation on this effort. It's their way or the highway. So, and they put it.
Notice how nobody brings up the illegal immigrant thing. With all of these Republicans, look, there's more Republicans in the House than there are Democrats. There's more Republicans in the Senate than there are Democrats. You'd think the mainstream media would be asking that question. Is any of this money going to illegal immigrants? I mean, after all, that is the big ass elephant in the room here. But of course, the left wing journalists, quote unquote journalists, they don't want to bring that up.
Not only that, continue to put at risk.
That'd be my first question I would ask her. Probably my own.
Putting the American public at risk. But they're moving to a shutdown. Puts the American public at risk.
Thank you.
All right, Daily Caller. I'm not so sure if that was unhinged. I mean, or a meltdown. That was hardly a meltdown. I was waiting for her to go like absolutely ballistic. You know, her glasses flying off her head. Her purple, I don't know if that's a wig or not, flying off. All right, whatever. So this is from Rep. Pete Aguilar. House Democrats and Democrats in the Senate stand united in advocating for health care in our country. For illegal
But House Democrats and Democrats in the Senate stand united in advocating for health care in our country. We know.
All right, I'm going to go off on a limb, and I bet he's probably not going to say American citizens. He's probably just going to stick to, we're advocating for health care.
That Americans are navigating two crises in this country. It is the affordability crisis and it is healthcare crisis. What House Democrats have said is that
who's benefiting?
Republicans have no credibility
get all this money
on this with their big ugly bill and what they have done to assault and attack healthcare. We have to address it, and we have to do everything we can in order to look out for the health and safety of the American public.
It's just so interesting with all the shit that's going on in the country right now that Democrats are just in lockstep only talking about healthcare. It's just very bizarre to me. I'm not saying it's not happening. I'm sure it's happening. I'm sure that the One Big Beautiful Bill, I'm sure it did cut a lot of, not tax provisions, but like, whatever the hell they called it. The tax benefits. Essentially just, extra money that they throw into Obamacare so recipients, they don't have to pay as much as they would otherwise. Again, it's temporary. It was never meant to be a forever thing. Otherwise, it would have been written into the Affordable Care Act as such. All right, so let me just make sure. Okay, yeah, this is still related. So Rep. Vern Buchanan, House GOP's Clean CR offers a path forward to keep the government open and to continue to work on long-term funding bills. Democrats must set aside their unreasonable partisan demands and join us to avoid a costly shutdown. I don't think that's going to happen. So this is from TampaBay.com. This is where I happen to live. So I'm quite familiar with the Tampa Bay Times. And they've been pretty left-wing for a while. But anyway, House Republicans acted responsibly to keep... Wait, was that the beginning? Okay, yeah. Acted responsibly to keep the federal government open by passing a clean continuing resolution. Now, as federal funding deadline approaches this Tuesday, Senate Democrats are holding government funding hostage over unreasonable partisan demands. Now, this is why I clicked on this, I decided to go with this because it's just really interesting that the Tampa Bay Times would have actually published this, to be honest with you. Rather than partnering with Republicans to approve short-term funding, Senate Democrats are threatening to force a shutdown unless Congress repeals the Working Families Tax Cut and restores taxpayer-funded healthcare for illegal aliens, adding $1.5 trillion to the national debt. Again, Tampa Bay Times, fairly left-leaning Tampa Bay Times. Even they're talking about it. Even they put that in here. Look, it was an op-ed that was written by Rep. Vern Buchanan, but they still published it. They still put it in their newspaper. Taxpayer-funded healthcare for illegal aliens. Make no mistake, if the government shuts down this week, Democrats will be fully responsible. This is not only unreasonable, it goes against Democrats' own words. Less than 2 weeks ago, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer acknowledged that if the government shuts down, it will be average Americans who suffer most. Yeah, and I bet a lot of them vote Democrat. I just don't see how they're going to benefit from that. Because Republican voters, they're pretty united currently. Even if Republican voters, if they take a hit with their health insurance, it's not going to affect which way they swing with regard to their voting. It really isn't. I just honestly don't see how this is going to help Democrats with their constituency in any way at all. I just don't see how it's going to help them. Now, yeah, like current Democrat voters who lose like a certain level of healthcare, instead of it costing $200 a month, now it's going to cost $350 a month. Yeah, they're going to get pissed off, but either way, they're still going to vote Democrat most likely. All right, anyway, Schumer is right. If Democrats don't join with Republicans to fund the government, Floridians will suffer. Seniors could face delays with Social Security. Veterans could lose access to VA offices. Troops might be forced to work without pay. And families relying on government assistance could see benefits paused. Which, by the way, if you get Social Security and if you're worried about that, I'll read something here in just a little bit from what they're saying, that Social Security checks are not going to be affected by this, that you're still going to get your Social Security checks. Anyway, while Republicans may control the House and the Senate, any funding package will need 60 votes in the Senate to pass, as I've been saying. To keep the government open, several Senate Democrats will need to heed Schumer's words, recognize the disastrous impact of a shutdown, and partner with the Republicans to pass the continuing resolution. Yeah, they need 7. If my number's right, they need 7 Democrats to vote for it. Our clean continuing resolution includes no significant alterations from previous Democrat-approved spending levels that were in place under Biden. Rather than push a funding bill full of partisan priorities, Republicans are simply asking Democrats to join us and pass a clean 2-month extension of current funding levels so we can continue negotiating on long-term funding. Republicans are open to negotiating long-term funding levels, but Democrats only came to the table a week before a potential shutdown to lay down their demands. This 11th hour approach risks pushing the country into chaos with seniors, veterans, and families left behind. Democrats want the chaos. They want to burn the system down. And I think it couldn't be possibly any clearer than it is right now. Anyway, a short-term 2-month extension gives Congress more time to negotiate funding in good faith and craft policies that truly serve the American people. So essentially, either way, in 2 months, they're going to have to vote on funding again regardless. And that's what's so appalling about Democrats insisting on shutting down the government now and not 2 months from now, where they could negotiate over the next 2 months, and then they could threaten to shut down the government if there isn't a deal that's to be made. I don't know. Anyway, critics of the House-passed clean continuing resolution will point out that Democrats' proposed alternative resolution includes a fix for expiring health care subsidies. This expiration is a crisis of Democrats' own making, and a short-term government funding package is not the appropriate vehicle to solve it. When Democrats passed these heightened subsidies into law at the height of the COVID pandemic, they only extended them through the end of 2025. You see, when Democrats passed this shit, they only extended it through the end of 2025. Now, rather than pass stopgap funding to engage in good faith negotiations and ensure any potential extension of the subsidies focuses on reducing deficits and preventing waste, Democrats are insisting on a rushed partisan process. That's not how we deliver durable bipartisan solutions for the American people. Let's see. Following recent acts of tragic political violence, I hope that my Democratic colleagues will join me to show all Americans that Congress is unified behind our basic constitutional responsibility to fund the government. Now it's time for unity, not partisan games. And our clean continuing resolution offers a path forward to keep the government open and continue to work on long-term funding bills. This is how Congress should work, through cooperation, not brinkmanship. I stand ready to work across the aisle to deliver responsible solutions, and I urge my Democratic colleagues to join me so we can avoid a costly shutdown. I don't think that's going to happen. Less than 48 hours. All right. Congressman Randy Fine. Democrats are threatening to shut down hurricane flood insurance at the peak of hurricane season. Although, to be fair, we're not being threatened with a hurricane currently, but I get what he's saying. If Republicans won't agree to provide free health insurance to illegal immigrants, their priorities are insane. Reject the Schumer shutdown. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, I live in Pinellas County. I live in St. Petersburg, and Hurricane Helene last year was the worst flooding event that we've had in our county in 80 years. So it was bad. We had a lot of flooding here last year. And then 2 weeks later, we had Hurricane Milton that delivered 100-mile-an-hour winds, at least to my house. And, of course, in some areas, it was stronger than others. I mean, it ripped the entire roof off of Tropicana Field. And as far as I know, they still haven't even fucking fixed it yet. It's still all tattered up. And it's been a year. Good grief. All right, Rapid Response 47. Is anyone surprised Soros-backed leftist group behind campaign to force government shutdown? I wouldn't be surprised. This is also from the Daily Caller. A left-wing activist group that received millions of dollars from the Soros family's organization is spearheading a pressure campaign to push Democrat senators to vote against funding the government and force a partial shutdown. Indivisible, the organization behind many of the recent No Kings protests and other demonstrations, part of the so-called resistance against President Donald Trump, the evil orange dictator, has embarked on a recent effort to goad Senate Democrats to not come to a bipartisan funding agreement with their Republican colleagues and the president. The group's website currently hosts a form enabling people to easily contact their Democratic senators by phone, complete with a script of what to say. Really? Let's see here. Call now. Tell Democratic senators to keep holding the line in the shutdown fight. This is from Indivisible. This is that nonprofit Soros-backed organization. Oh, look, you can even share on Blue Sky. Oh, no, they don't have X. They don't have Twitter. Oh, no, fuck those platforms. They're too free speech for us. No, we got to go over there on Blue Sky. Blue Sky, where the commies reign supreme. Anyway, federal government funding runs out on Wednesday, October 1st, and Republicans are poised to force a Trump shutdown rather than stop MAGA healthcare cuts or put cheeks on Trump's lawless power grabs. So far, every Senate Democrat except John Fetterman has bravely held the line to fight for healthcare, defend the rule of law, and block congressional Republicans from handing Trump blank checks. We need to remind them we're with them and urge them to keep on fighting and use this form. Please make sure you have your phone nearby. Oh, look at this. Look at this. Here it is. Check this out. Look at this shit. All right, let me zoom in a little bit. Here is your script. That's the script. Hi, my name is, insert your name here, and I'm a constituent from Name Your City. I'm calling to thank Senator Blank for holding the line in the shutdown fight so far. It's like, dude, if you all say the same thing, I mean, whatever. They're still going to count it toward another phone call from one of their constituents. I mean, why do you have to have a carefully crafted script? I mean, they're all going to sound identical. It's going to sound like the same person calling over and over again. Instead, you could just say your name, your city, hold the line, hang up. All right, whatever, man. These people are idiots. So, Indivisible. All right, we already did that. The group's non-tax deductible entity, Indivisible Project, has received a total of $7.6 million in grants from the Soros Open Society Foundations over the past 8 years, according to Indivisible's website. Oh, yeah? Let's take a look at that, too. The Indivisible's website. Awarded grants. Indivisible Project. $3 million, $1.1 million, $500K, $375, $1.75 million, $500K, $350K. Year by year, by the way. And look at that, man. 2023, that's a big jump. Why don't they have 2024's numbers yet? How much you want to bet it's a lot more than 3 million? I bet it's probably like 30 million. I bet it is. It wouldn't surprise me. Open Society Action Fund, 2-year term, 3 million to support the grantees' social welfare activities. Is that what they're calling it? Social welfare activities? Sounds to me like political activism that they're actually engaged with. But whatever. All right. Let's take a quick look. OSF is a grant-making network which left-wing billionaire George Soros founded in 1993 and his son Alex Soros currently chairs. Federal government funding runs out September 30th, and Republicans need Democratic votes to clear the filibuster and avoid a government shutdown. Yeah, I already read all that. So anyway, I'll link this if you want to take a look. It's quite detailed. They go into quite a bit of detail with regard to this quote-unquote nonprofit that's backed by the Soros Foundation. And that'll be in the description below, dailycaller.com. You want to check it out. And this comes from House Democrats. A reminder, Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the White House. If the government shuts down because they refuse to pass a bipartisan spending bill, it will be on Republicans. Of course, not mentioning the fact that they need 7 Democrat votes or else the spending bill doesn't pass, won't pass. Yes, they got photos, memes. The only thing I fear more than the government shutting down is the government staying open. And that's also another thing. There's a lot of people who vote Republican that are all about small government. So this is music to their ears. Like, wait a minute, like Democrats are going to force a government shutdown and I should worry about that. Why? So you're not going to spend my money on bullshit, right? Because you're shutting the government down partially. Yeah, I think that a lot more Democrats are going to have a problem with this than Republicans. All I'm saying. All right, so let's go to the next thing here. Fox News, VP Vance on negotiations with Democrats, quote, "We're not going to let you take the people's government hostage and then give you everything you want." I thought I had his quote here.
That's about negotiations. One of the things I admired about the president, but frankly the entire team's approach during the conversation we just had with Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries was, they have some crazy ideas. Giving taxpayer money to illegal aliens for healthcare, that's a crazy idea. Funding transgender surgeries in Peru, that's a crazy idea. But they had some ideas that I actually thought were reasonable, and they had some ideas that the president thought was reasonable. What's not reasonable is to hold those ideas as leverage and to shut down the government unless we give you everything that you want. There were multiple times where Leader Jeffries or Leader Schumer would say, you know what, we should be doing this, and the President of the United States would say, yeah, absolutely, let's have that conversation, but we're going to do it in the context of the people's government being open. We're not going to let you take the people's government hostage and then give you everything that you want. And that's really the state of the negotiation. Yeah, let's have a conversation. Let's have a negotiation, but we're not going to shut down the government because we won't give the Democrats everything that they want.
Yep, amen.
About negotiations.
Amen. Don't give them everything they want. Just hold your ground. That's what I keep saying. Hold your ground. Just let them dig their own freaking graves. All right. Rapid Response 47. Democrats want a $1.5 trillion spending package that funded free health care for illegals. We told them that was absurd, and now they're willing to shut down the government over it. It's unacceptable.
We just had a very frank conversation with the Senate and House Democratic leadership. Look, the principle at stake here is very simple. We have disagreements about tax policy, but you don't shut that government down. We have disagreements about health care policy, but you don't shut the government down. You don't use your policy disagreements as leverage to not pay our troops, to not have essential services of government actually function. You don't say the fact that you disagree about a particular tax provision is an excuse for shutting down the people's government and all the essential services that come along with it. If you look at what Chuck Schumer has said in the past consistently, it's whatever our disagreements are, let's negotiate with them. Let's talk about them. Let's figure out a bipartisan solution, but you don't shut the government down. In other words, you don't put a gun to the American people's head and say, unless you do exactly what Senate and House Democrats want you to do, we're going to shut down your government. That's exactly what they're proposing out there. Now, we have to remember, they're very frustrated. They say that they're very frustrated about the fact that this negotiation has not taken place until today. But if you look at the original thing they did with this negotiation, it was a $1.5 trillion spending package, basically saying to the American people, we want to give massive amounts of money, hundreds of billions of dollars to illegal aliens for their health care, while Americans are struggling to pay their health care bills.
And that's why I know that the Democrats want to shut down the government regardless. It doesn't matter because they know that is an absolute non-starter for Republicans. They know this because we've got ICE all around the country trying to get all of the illegal immigrants out of here. And it also boggles my mind because 78% of Americans are in favor and support mass deportations. It's such a weird thing for them to stand on. That if we don't allow them to have funding for illegal immigrant health care, they're willing to shut down the government. It just doesn't make sense to me. And the Democrats are not pushing back, saying, no, we're not going to use that money for that. They're not pushing back against it. It's just, it's like they found one of the most ridiculous things that they could possibly demand, or else they're going to shut down the government. I mean, there's probably hundreds of different things that they could have demanded instead of that may have been a little more reasonable. It's an absolute non-starter, dude. Like, no, none of the Republicans are going to go for that to allow illegal immigrants to get fucking health care, dude. We're trying to get them out of the country.
That was their initial foray into this negotiation. We thought it was absurd. We told them it was absurd, and now they come in here saying that if you don't give us everything that we want, we're going to shut down the government. We think that's preposterous. We think it's totally
Let it happen.
unacceptable,
Let
and
them
we think
shut
the
it down.
American people are going to suffer because these guys won't do the
They
right
will.
thing.
They're
Now, I
gonna
want to
look
make one
right at the
final point
Democrats
here.
for it.
You will hear a lot from Senate Democrats, from House Democrats.
And look, as soon as it shuts down, watch, they are going to start the gaslighting campaign with the Democrats saying that the Republicans control the Senate, Republicans control the House. They're going to stand on that. That's all you're going to hear. You're not going to really hear much about healthcare at all. It's just going to be over and over 1,000 fucking times. They're going to keep saying that. Republicans control Congress. The Republicans, they control the White House. They're doing it, not us. That's what they're going to stand on, and they're going to try to just like beat that dead horse all the way into oblivion, into a fucking mud hole, to try to get that just ingrained into their constituencies' heads. I think that's what their plan is, because it seems to have worked in the past, where they just repeat the same thing over and over and over again, and eventually they're like, well, they said it to me 10,000 times. I guess it's just fucking true.
That's about the fact that American healthcare policy is broken. Well, we know that American healthcare policy is broken. We've been trying to fix it for the 8 months that we've been in office, but every single thing
Obamacare
that they accuse about being broken about American healthcare is policy the Democrats have supported for the past decade. So if they want to talk about how to fix American healthcare policy, let's do it. The Speaker would love to do it. The Senate Majority Leader would love to do it. Let's work on it together.
Healthcare goods and
Let's do
services.
it in the context of an open government
Get to the root
that's
of the problem.
providing essential services to the American people. That's all that we're proposing to do, and the fact that they refuse to do that shows how unreasonable their position is. I think we're headed to a shutdown because the Democrats won't do the right thing. I hope they change their mind, but we're going to see. We just had a very...
Yeah, I've already said it enough times that I think this is going to negatively impact Democrats a lot more than it will Republicans. We'll just have to see, though.